Sunny Hostin thought she was untouchable until Gutfeld and Kat Timpf took her down without even saying her name.
It's about the view. It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, how can you now speak the truth when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest.
Sunny Hostin just learned a tough lesson. You don't show up to a roast, especially one hosted by comedians like Greg Gutfeld and Kat Timpf, without armor. Except she didn't even show up. That's what made it even more brutal. Without warning, Sunny became the target of a sharp and savage takedown on national TV. And it hit so hard, it left viewers wondering if they just watched a comedy skit or a psychological case study in ego deflation. Let's rewind. At first,
He's such a group. It's amazing how Joy and Whoopi became the smart ones.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was. They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show has? 31.
31 Emmys.
This show has 31. I mean, I'd hate to see the conversations that don't make headlines.
everything was fine in Sunny's world. She was doing what she always does on The View, sitting at a table, sharing opinions as if they were facts, and keeping her tone polished and self-assured. It was business as usual. Think of it like a school group project where no one says what they're really thinking, but everyone's silently judging each other. Then came the storm. And it wasn't just a few sarcastic jokes. It was a full-blown comedic ambush from the Gutfeld crew, who didn't even need Sunny in the room to roast her. From their studio, Greg Gutfeld and Kat Timpf aimed their signature brand of dry, cutting humor directly at Sunny's public persona, and the result wasn't just funny. It was devastating. Kat Timpf came in quietly, almost playfully.
Now to some news. The feral monsters of The View say they've never heard of you-know-who. True, the show that makes mornings hell claim that my name doesn't ring a bell. It's time for...
Our view on The View. Ugh.
Yeah, the witch's coven finally shows me some lovin'. Yesterday on The View, yours truly was the subject of conversation. Apparently the broads have no idea who I am, or so they say. Hit it, Gladys.
They said that Gutfeld talks about you all the time.
Who is he? Really, who is he?
I don't watch the show.
He has a show.
I don't watch the
never
show.
heard of him.
Yeah.
I guess he's just obsessed with me.
No. Next, Joy's gonna say she's never heard of carbs.
Dropping sarcasm with a smile. Gutfeld played the ringleader, guiding the segment like a conductor leading an orchestra of chaos. They didn't yell. They didn't insult her directly. But the way they dismantled her style, her dramatic pauses, her serious tone, her holier-than-thou attitude left no doubt about who they were mocking. Sunny didn't cry or have an on-air meltdown, but viewers could see the shift. Her reactions became less confident. The calm, composed delivery turned slightly tense. Her tone, usually smooth and assertive, started sounding defensive.
Seriously, her denial of knowing me is as believable as her red hair. But obsession? I mean, come on, Joy. Where would you even get that idea? Like Joy Behar's face, it's looking worse and worse by the day. More full of crap than Joy Behar after a night of scotch and Taco Bell. Her being named Joy is like me being named ugly. Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. It now smells like a humid day inside Joy Behar's moo-moo. The motives stink worse than Joy Behar's jog bra. I mean, assuming she jogs. Oh, wait, there she is.
It wasn't a collapse. It was a slow, visible unraveling. That's what made it fascinating. She didn't say anything publicly. No fiery tweets. No dramatic Instagram stories. Just silence. But sometimes, silence says more than a whole speech. Her next few appearances on The View felt different. Her speeches were longer.
I just want to hit myself in the face so I can feel something. You know, it's like so boring. She's like, yeah, I like Instacart, but don't worry, I tip the poors. But, you know, Joy, you actually don't like Instacart and you do like the store. And then Joy is like, yeah, I do. I like to go to the store. I like to walk around and see what's at the store, what I do want, what I don't want. Maybe I want tuna fish and I just want to hit myself.
Her expressions tighter, and her effort to appear unbothered was almost too obvious. It was the TV version of someone tripping, standing up quickly, and pretending they meant to do it. Meanwhile, the internet lit up. Clips of her reactions became memes. TikTok users animated her facial expressions. Twitter users turned her moments into GIFs. YouTube channels analyzed the shift in her tone like it was a political debate. Everyone saw it.
Are you pretty surprised that they didn't know what this show was?
No, I'm also not surprised that there's one part of the video from the show yesterday that you left out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, can we roll that, please?
I don't watch the show that much, but I've seen it.
Who is that?
Who is that?
Greg Gutfeld's one of the hosts of The Five. Who, if I don't have anything nice to say, I generally don't say anything at all. I would just say this: his show should be called Cat Timpf, not Gutfeld, because she's the funny one on it.
Somebody's flirting with little cat over here.
Well, she's the Republican one at the table, but I just think as a libertarian, I'm always looking to find common ground with other people because nobody really shares my politics. So I find some common ground in The View where she thinks I'm funny and I agree.
Everyone felt the shift, even if they couldn't quite explain it. What made it sting even more? Gutfeld and Kat never said her name. They didn't have to. Their roast was so sharp, so specific in energy, that Sunny couldn't help but feel it was about her. And when she reacted even subtly, she confirmed what everyone suspected. She took it personally. That's when the comedy truly hit home. Sunny has always built her brand around confidence and control. She's the calm voice of reason, the moral compass at the table. But when comedians come for you, that kind of seriousness becomes your greatest weakness. Because satire doesn't respect self-importance, it tears it apart.
The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years. They're turning on me. So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the View's gravitational pull.
Kat Timpf barely lifted a finger. A raised eyebrow. A smirk. A soft bless your heart tone was all it took to flip Sunny's public image on its head. She mocked the overly serious tone that The View often takes, turning its high-minded debates into comedy material. And Gutfeld? He stood back and enjoyed the chaos, gleefully pointing out the disconnect between the show's self-righteous vibe and the real world's tolerance for it. It wasn't about facts or arguments. It was about tone, timing, mockery. Sunny's attempt to ignore it only made it worse. It was clear something had shaken her. Her behavior changed. Her delivery changed. And even if fans tried to defend her with hashtags or opinion pieces, the damage was done. Because here's the truth. Once you become the punchline of a joke that didn't even mention your name, you can't walk it back. You're already part of the story. And that's the real beauty of what Gutfeld and Kat pulled off. They didn't need to debate her or confront her directly. They held up a mirror with a layer of sarcasm and Sunny walked right up and started arguing with her own reflection. It wasn't a roast aimed at one person.
Was mocked by The View over his name, prompting Musk's child to exclaim, "Daddy, I didn't know hippos could talk." Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
It was a roast of an entire attitude, the overly serious, untouchable vibe that some media personalities carry with them. The irony? Sunny is actually smart. That's what made it all so tragic. And honestly, a little funny. Smart people often think they're safe from satire. But satire doesn't care about IQ, it only cares if you take yourself too seriously. And in that moment, Sunny became the perfect example.
Nah, you look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart. And I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well. And it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable.
She wasn't forced into that moment. She walked into it by reacting, by adjusting her tone, by letting the joke get under her skin. And for the Gutfeld team, that was a win without ever needing a direct hit. They launched the roast, then moved on. Meanwhile, Sunny was left smoldering in the ashes, pretending everything was fine. Viewers, of course, saw right through it. And let's be honest, watching someone try to maintain poise after being publicly mocked, without directly being named, is the kind of TV that beats most dramas. It was messy, entertaining, and real. The comedy wasn't just in the jokes, it was in the reaction, in the silence, in the effort to appear unaffected. In the end, The View will go on. The coffee mugs will clink, the banter will resume, and Sunny will keep delivering her polished takes. But something's changed. That untouchable image now has a crack in it. And every time someone replays that roast, shares a meme, or quotes that segment, the crack gets a little wider. The loudest message wasn't delivered in a speech. It came through laughter, sarcasm, and a perfectly timed roast. Sunny wasn't destroyed, but she was humbled. And while she keeps up appearances, the audience saw behind the curtain, and it's hard to forget that once you've seen it, because at the end of the day, when someone reacts this hard to something subtle, it's not just a roast, it's a confession.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter.
The roast that shook The View, Sunny Hostin's unseen meltdown. In the world of television, moments of tension and drama often unfold behind the scenes, away from the glaring spotlight. However, occasionally, these moments break through, captivating audiences and leaving lasting impressions. One such incident occurred when Sunny Hostin, a co-host of The View, found herself at the center of an unexpected and intense on-air roast by Greg Gutfeld and Kat Timpf from Gutfeld, the calm before the storm. Sunny Hostin was accustomed to the dynamics of daytime television. As a seasoned legal analyst and co-host of The View, she had honed her ability to navigate the often turbulent waters of political discourse with poise and confidence. Her role was clear: to provide insightful commentary, challenge opposing viewpoints, and uphold the show's liberal perspective. However, this particular week felt different. The discussions on The View were proceeding as usual, with the hosts engaging in their typical banter and debates. Yet, unbeknownst to Hostin, a storm was brewing on the other side of the television spectrum. Enter Gutfeld and Timpf. Greg Gutfeld, known for his sharp wit and satirical approach, and Kat Timpf, with her blend of sarcasm and humor, had been observing Hostin's recent statements and public appearances. They saw an opportunity to challenge her narrative and, in doing so, expose what they perceived as hypocrisy. The catalyst for their roast was Hostin's appearance on PBS's Finding Your Roots, where she discovered that her ancestors were slave owners. This revelation stood in stark contrast to her public persona as a champion of social justice and equality. Gutfeld and Timpf seized upon this irony, crafting a segment that would both entertain and provoke thought. The roast unfolds. On their show, Gutfeld and Timpf dissected Hostin's public persona with surgical precision. They highlighted the contradictions between her outspoken advocacy for marginalized communities and her newfound ancestral history. Their commentary was laced with humor, but beneath the jokes lay a pointed critique of what they saw as selective morality. Gutfeld's approach was to juxtapose Hostin's calls for accountability with her own lack of introspection. He remarked on her tendency to lecture others on issues like reparations and white privilege, while seemingly overlooking her own privileged background. Timpf added to the critique, emphasizing the disparity between Hostin's public advocacy and her personal circumstances.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist.
Their roast was not merely a personal attack, but a broader commentary on the performative nature of some public figures' activism. It was a reminder that true advocacy requires self-awareness and consistency. Hostin's reaction. The aftermath of the roast was telling. Hostin, known for her composed demeanor, appeared visibly shaken in subsequent appearances. Her usual, confident tone gave way to defensiveness, and her arguments seemed less grounded. The shift was subtle but noticeable to keen observers. Instead of addressing the roast directly, Hostin attempted to reinforce her credibility by doubling down on her positions. She increased the length and intensity of her monologues, perhaps in an effort to reassert control over the narrative. However, this strategy seemed to backfire, as it only drew more attention to the perceived cracks in her facade. Public perception and media response. The public's reaction was swift and varied. On